Okay, so you've already heard quite a bit of David earlier today during the keynote when he talked a little bit about his community, and I'm really, really happy to have him here at Mahara again, because David is an outlier. And I'm not meaning that in a bad way, but in a really, really good way. We've heard a lot about how students and instructors use Mahara and ePortfolios in general at university level or in further education, but what we haven't really heard is how do you use it with a community that is not education related, well, that is education related in some ways, but that is outside of a formal or formal education context. And David has been a long-time user of portfolios and also badges in particular to help his community to build relationships and also to further them. And so I'm really, really happy to hear from him what he does with Mahara and other tools this year around.
Thank you very much, Christina. It's always a pleasure to come to a Mahara Hui, whether it's here or in Australia, because the people that participate in these events often bring fantastic knowledge that they're willing to share. And in some ways, for me, the best keynotes are over the coffee and lunchtime breaks, because such a wealth can be used and taken into different contexts that we don't normally think about. Now, I've been in the educational sector before and had to do all the necessary compliances, but in the last 2 years, I've taken an ePortfolio out of the education sector, and I now use it with a number of church communities up and down New Zealand, but we've still got about 30 Australian ministers in a separate institution in the same portfolio. So all up, we're dealing with a community of about 180 people who are all, and I stress the word all, even the Australian ministers are volunteers in this community. And what happens is identical to what happens, for example, in Ken's institution. There are a few of them who are highly literate in IT, but the vast bulk of them are in the 60, 65 plus age bracket, and even email is a struggle, and not many of them are on Facebook. And you think, how on earth could an ePortfolio be relevant to this group of people? Perhaps that's your 1 to 2% that you were worried about. And the reality turns out to be completely different to what you might expect. We have about 20 pretty regular and committed content creators, and the rest are participants in the ePortfolio who want to consume that content. But there is no external framework saying you must do this. So I found particularly helpful in this transfer out of tertiary learning sector into the wider community to think about that whole thing that the ePortfolio is about, which is creating content. It implies that people want to create the content. And how many students actually do want to create the content within the institution, and how many simply create the content because that's the requirement for the course completion? If you think about content creation, it approximates, it implies that there's going to be design within that content. Now, I asked Ken yesterday at Unitec whether any of the design students, the art students, those that were involved in what we'd normally call the artistic, how many of them and their instructors used the Mahara ePortfolio for creating content? Answer, if I remember correctly, was 0. They look at Mahara, which is a tool that says, here's how to be very creative, and they say it's not meeting our needs in terms of what we're being taught. So I thought that that might be applicable to anyone who creates content in Mahara for any purpose, be it nurses, be it the principals, aspiring principals, teachers, whatever. How much work do we have to do to help them understand that their content will be designed and that they are the designers of their content? The portfolio doesn't design their content. They design their content. The portfolio assists them to display it. And that's the second key word that I think makes Mahara a fantastic tool for general community use, because it implies, or it's stated, that it's there for curation. But as we've heard in a number of addresses, we're no longer at a stage where we regard Mahara as the sort of, like a little memory stick. You really want Mahara to be lean and mean, with not a lot of content in there, but to be able to relate out to other places that you may be curating your content. And I wonder whether a better word we use it now in our community, we don't say so much curation because it approximates to and implies the staging of the content that you've created. So content creation and staging is what curation is all about. And it's no different to a gallery curating and staging an exhibition. In the Auckland Art Gallery just over the road, they brought over a brilliant exhibition from Europe, The Art of the Nude. And lots of people are going in there to look at all of this. That's staged. But it's also curated, it's been collected. And I think that's the missing word in a lot of what Mahara users are on about. They don't understand that they're curating that content in order to be able to stage it to a bigger world. Now, I've forgotten what the correct term is in Mahara. Is it share or collaborate? Share. It's share. I would like to actually see that replaced with, for our community, I should say. We actually now think of it in terms of commissioning content. And we commission that content in order approximately to be able to market it. I hazard a guess that very, very few of your ePortfolio students, let alone teachers, actually think about marketing their content in Facebook, in YouTube, on Snapchat. But these are all the places that the kids and, that's the place where your curated, staged content ought to be marketed. And our challenge has been, how do we do this? How do we make the sum of our content, which is created, curated and commissioned, how do we get this out to this bigger audience? Now, our results, look, my local church pays me a budget. Don't laugh, I'm used to dealing with much bigger budgets. They pay me a budget of $5,000. And roughly $100 goes in, off digital oceans or something, hosting Mahara. Then they pay for basically Creative Cloud, Adobe Creative Cloud, and we also use an Adobe Connect meeting room. Then the rest of that budget goes on paying Facebook and YouTube in terms of promoting our content creators' work. And what kind of results do we get? Well, believe me, our content creators are very, very skilled lay preachers in both Methodist, Presbyterian, Anglican churches up and down New Zealand. They are used to dealing with text. Many of them have published books, papers, journals, etc. But the idea that they would preach a sermon, and most times they're preaching to a congregation of between 20 and 30, and if they're very lucky, maybe between 40 and 60, very, very lucky if they get 60 on an average Sunday, all of a sudden, their ability to create content in text has to be commissioned to want to attract age groups that are 15 to 24 in various target countries around the world. How do we use the portfolio to do it? And I've just taken a sample of, here's a typical content creator's page in our Mahara instance, Kiwi Connection. So the profile information, how's this for privacy? Here's Stuart Mannins, 84 years old. There's his CV. I know you can't read it off the screen. And it's there for the world to see. Now, I suspect you'd have issues in any of your institutions trying to do that. But the reality is, he could stick it up on his own website and do it anyway. So I'm beginning to wonder, what are the real institutional problems with this kind of sharing? Down this column, this is 2 pages by the way, we created a music video for him because he composes songs. He was an international music educator. So he writes new hymns and songs, and we put it in YouTube. We put it up on SoundCloud. We go over to his next page, we create zines. Ever heard of a zine? Well, you sort of might have heard of a zine. Actually, I suspect you might know about zines, do you?
I've seen them before in cafes.
A zine, how's this for the digital age? A true zine was created in about the 60s. They're big news amongst early secondary school age. Big news. But essentially what they do is fold an A4 or letter size in half and then into quarters. You slit it down the middle between those two and just refold it out into a little booklet. And can I just borrow your phone, please? Without actually looking at it. Isn't that amazing? The phone size is actually about the size of an A4 printed zine. And so, it's not the only thing we do with zines. Part of our content creation in a zine is to be able to print it out so that if someone really wanted to, they could make a publication. And it's published under his name. This is my zine by a citizen, etc. And this kind of thing, we've discovered, takes off in Facebook. How we go about branding it? Well, we've just celebrated this guy's 84th birthday. And here he is, writing songs, writing music, willing to be recorded. So our Mahara platform, and I must admit that I'm the chief guy that does this, because I love my content creators. They're so brilliant at text, they're so brilliant at communicating their ideas. It's a pleasure for me to be able to just do what's really a minor bit of electronic work to put together the zine. What we use is InDesign to create our zines. We even use InDesign to create our movies. It's intelligent designing. So, for example, we took a set of books that he published 20 years ago. They're well known internationally for very early childhood music stories, and we've repackaged them as zines and YouTubes, and I've forgotten how we do it. Here's another where we've curated his content, etc. He's not the only content creator, but I'm just giving examples of how we stage his exhibitions. We will interview people online in the Adobe Connect meeting. We record it, we edit it, and then we put it out to our live on air on Facebook. We actually also do live streaming. It's just a question of which we want to use at the time. And all the while, all of these things that you're seeing on screen are curated back in Stuart's ePortfolio. And that's the last one that we did. He wrote a song about Jonah and the whale, and we had Colin Gibson, international hymn writer down in Dunedin, ex-professor of English. He put the score together. One of our artists did the graphics for it, and it's there in his ePortfolio. It's Creative Commons 4. Anyone can take it. It's a lovely little resource that is shared around the world. And that's the kind of thing that we do with our ePortfolio. We believe that they're elegant, they're highly interactive, they're design content, they're staged collections, and each one of our content creators is personally branded in social media. None of this would be possible if we didn't have Mahara, or if it were possible, it would be so much harder to do because it would be distributed across all the social media. The fact that it's in Mahara, we can push it out to social media. So that's what gives us a real joy to be able to work with this software, and dare I say it, now that I'm retired, free of all the restrictions of the institutions. I think it's a fantastic product, and I couldn't be happier using it. And I'll finish with a personal story. I've told it to some of you. About 6 months ago and just a few days, I did an online interview with Alison Miller that presented here yesterday, and Christina Hopner, and we were just exploring ways that ePortfolios could be used. And I said, I'll get this edited content to you tomorrow. And when I said to Alison, before I was so rudely interrupted, the rude interruption was caused by myself. I ended up in hospital, and it turned out that I had appendicitis, and I was 95% blocked on my main artery. And so I thought, well, this could be interesting. When one evening the anaesthetist arrived, and he said, he was a very nice chap, he said, well, Mr. Bell, we think we can get you through this. So I got hold of a friend of mine and I said, bring down my Chromebook. And I thought, the last thing I'm going to do is get on, believe it or not, our Kiwi Connection Mahara instance and send out my final forum note. And so I told everyone what was going on, and well, whether you want to believe theologically in miracles or not really doesn't interest me. My experience was that they administered the antibiotics over a couple of days, etc. They quietened my appendix down. They did the heart operation with a great deal of ease, and I'm now, I think I'm now functioning on 105% heart, 5% plus a full set of replacement veins, etc. So, Why did I choose? I mean, obviously I texted my wife and said, hey, we've got an interesting development here. But why did I choose to go back to that online community? I mean, many of them are friends that I've been well established with over, years and years and years. Well, I went back there because it was the simplest, easiest way to communicate with that group of people. And I thought, this is as much a good use of Mahara as it would be writing a private message in Facebook, etc. So there you go. That's my story. Thank you.
I missed it when you say you share it on Facebook, the artefacts. Are you actually sharing the whole page?
No, we don't share the whole page. For example, we'll share a zine, but the zine constantly refers back to multiple pages. The links are in the zine back to,
back to
the ePortfolio. Likewise, if we do a video in YouTube, in the Show More section, all the links link back to the portfolio. And then we track those with Google Analytics. Our folk are perfectly happy with that. That's the only privacy issue we've got. And so it depends how much advertising has really gone into either the YouTube video or the Facebook post. But like with the YouTube videos, mostly the videos are around my theological content. Mostly the zines are around the text-based stuff, which we add all kinds of graphics to, etc. In YouTube, on very abstract and not necessarily easily understood theology, we are on track for, by the end of June, to have over 1 million watched minutes. So out of those 1 million watch minutes, a certain proportion of people will open up the info section and click the link. So we can see, for example, I wrote a paper called The Gospel of John and the Way of the Geometer. It's not going to be very... But the page in Mahara, I'm not sure whether it's that page, but, well over 1,000 visits. Now, we've got a community of what? 100? So it's really working out there.
So are you making your pages public, or are you making still that link a secret URL?
No, they're totally public. Once you commit to being a content creator, everything about your Mahara becomes public in Kiwi Connection. So I'm sorry, it's such a different way of looking at things compared to the institutional way. Oh, thanks.
No, just wanted to say thanks for that point number 2, the concept of staging, which has always been my worry with online portfolios, online anything. It's a dumping ground. As a student, tell you, here it is, and then as a grader or something or an assessor, you come and say, okay, well, where do I look? Where do I start? And I think to have this extra piece of the assessment process, I say, use Mahara for all your stuff, but then it's up to you to stage, well, the curation will be the collection part indeed, and then stage it. This is the assessment, and to have specific, it's kind of the same as a word count on an essay, really. Just like, it's not tell me everything you know, but no, I want you to present me the best bit, and that the concept, the visual I have in my mind of the exhibition, say, what you see in the museum is just the best bit. What is most representative of your knowledge or your content. I think it's brilliant. So just not a question, but thanks for that.
Analogy, actually, you're right.
So powerful.
So when you go to a museum,
it's right into the we say in our context student ownership of the pages. So they own the pages. They need to take care of it.
And they need to take the ownership, so they need to see themselves less as I'm just going to chuck this stuff in the ePortfolio because I can, but more, well, I'm going to present this information in a way that is a little bit more discerning. Because like you said, when you go to the museum, most of the stuff is not actually displayed. It's hidden away in underground vaults somewhere.
That's exactly right. I think with the staging concept is perhaps the most powerful concept in Mahara, that you create it, you curate it, but you then have to stage it. And that may mean that your page only has one artifact on it, a single image, or if you're good at InDesign, you may create a PDF that looks totally different. Mahara pages can be a bit clunky, but if you've just got one block that the PDF entirely fills the block, you've got a beautiful way of getting really well-designed stuff.
Thank you, David. Thanks
Thank
for
you.
your presentation and your enthusiasm.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.